Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Experience Creators. My name is Carolene, and today my guest is Austrian paraswimmer and TV moderator Andreas Onea. Andreas lost his arm in a car accident at a very early age and has since gone on to become the most successful Austrian Paralympic swimmer, having competed at 3 Paralympic Games and winning a total of 10 international swimming medals. Andreas is currently training for the 2021 Tokyo Paralympic Games, and I had the absolute pleasure and honor of sitting down with him and learning more about the Paralympic game experience through the eyes of an elite athlete, through the eyes of a participant. So if you are an experience creator, you have an experience that you offer the world, this is a perfect opportunity for you to get a deeper insight into the Paralympic Games experience and take strategies that have been used for thousands of years in this legendary event and apply it into your own experiences. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you an incredibly inspiring human and elite athlete, Andreas Onea. Andreas, welcome to the Experience Creators. I'm very excited to have you here because we are going to be talking about many elements that we haven't talked about yet on the Experience Creators. So welcome, and let's get ready for the next 20-25 minutes of an amazing conversation.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to it.
Let's start. We had this conversation before about how we both love the water a lot. You know, I grew up in Australia. So as an Australian, I think you naturally are just thrown in the pool when you're very, very young, and you learn especially about water safety when it comes to the ocean, because we have, you know, we're surrounded by sharks. That's what everyone thinks Australia is, an island surrounded by sharks. So you learn very quickly about water safety. And now I'm based in the Mediterranean, and the Mediterranean Sea, there's something incredibly magical about it. So I'm always drawn to that to that element. So in terms of you know, you're a Paralympic swimmer, you've spent your life in the water as well. So what is it that you love about being in the water? What makes you jump in that swimming pool day after day?
So my road to loving the water is a little bit different than yours. I come from a family that was not so passionate about sports, and especially not passionate about swimming. And swimming in our region, in where my parents are coming from, Romania and Austria, is not that important like in Australia. But after my accident, when I got thrown into the water with one arm at the rehabilitation center where I had my therapy so that I can be able to move around, I learned that the water is carrying me, and it's just another element that helps me to move from A to B, and it's something that is so cool because it's different. It's different than air. You can move with it. It's something that's supporting you, and especially the thought of missing an arm or missing another limb or having a disability and maybe being limited in your mobility on land in the dry, and then going to the water and being able to move alone without help, and mostly getting where you want to go with different paces, different speeds. It was something that fascinated me a lot, and I always dove under the people in the pool while I was learning to swim with one arm, and they were like making fun of me that I was just going under them, and yeah, so the water passionated me. It just felt amazing to be in it, and I really loved it. I hated training though, so
Right.
I had to learn to love the training as well, the hard part of it. But it's just something that's so interesting to be able to have mobility back that you otherwise wouldn't have on the dry land.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for me, I was having a conversation with somebody recently who, you know, she made a comment like, oh, I feel like I'm drowning, like I have so much work, I have so much stress. And I brought up the example of, you know, actually being under the water, being under the surface of the water, for me, it's the most beautiful experience, especially when it comes to the sea or the ocean, because, you know, I had an experience recently, just this past summer, where it was so crystal clear. It was beautiful. There was colors, there was life under the sea. And it's almost like for a moment you get to experience this whole other world and then you come up and then the reality kind of hits you again because you need to breathe, obviously. But I've always been fascinated by, you know, those kind of free divers and spear fishermen and that whole area, because again, you're discovering this, you know, this whole new world, as Ariel would say from The Little Mermaid, you know. So do you find that as well when the almost like above world life is incredibly stressful and the experiences that you're going through can be overwhelming, really getting in the water and kind of diving underneath really helps with that? Do you find that as well?
It sounds like I should spend more time in the sea and in the ocean and not just in the pools of this world. I can relate to what you're saying because you're alone with your thoughts down there. So when I dive in, when I go into the water and go into training, and I know that I have 2.5 hours of training ahead of me, and it's just me in the water and me moving in the water. I know that I will be confronted with my thoughts, with my mind, with myself, and this on a regular basis every time. And this is something that helps me to disconnect with the stress that's above the water. Of course, I need to get up to breathe, but it's like a momentary breathing and I'm back in the water again. It's like 1 second breathing and the rest is underwater again for the next moments. And coming back to this being alone with myself is something that has helped me a lot to be balanced and to be relieved in this stressful life, especially as an athlete. And those times where you cannot plan ahead, you cannot have clarity what's coming. And this is something that I've really valued, despite of the hard training, despite of it being really, really, really hard doing it. But just jumping into the water, feeling the cold water, feeling it being wet, and knowing that now I'm diving into it, I will be with myself for the next 2.5 hours. I will have time to go into deep with my thoughts, and this is something that has helped me a lot. I would love to see more of a universe under the water in our pools, but that's not possible. But I hope that when I finish my swimming career, that I will be able to experience water and all those things in these ways as well. So this is something that I'm really looking forward to. But I can relate
right.
to the things that you have said.
Instead of just like staring at a straight line at the bottom of the pool, right? Is actually
exactly. This is the one perspective that I have right now, like looking down and just seeing the line and knowing, okay, when the line ends, I need to turn, and then I see the line again, and then when it ends, I need to turn. So having this perspective change is really something that I'm looking forward. I'm always asked what I'm doing while I'm underwater. People ask me if I'm counting the tiles. But we have no tiles in our pool, so I cannot count anything. So I'm really just alone with myself.
Oh, wow. Now you are training for your 4th Paralympic Games. You went to Beijing, London, Rio, and now Tokyo. We spoke about this off camera in the sense that the Olympic Games, the Paralympic Games, is something that we're all highly aware of. We're all aware of the tradition from the Greeks, and, you know, we know kind of what goes on because we see it on TV. We see the main events. We see, you know, me, I grew up a gymnast. So anytime there's gymnastics on the TV, I'm like drawn in. So I think we all have a very good understanding about what is involved with the Olympic Games. And so I'm intrigued now that you're about to go to your 4th Olympic game, all over the world you have been, apart from your actual swimming events, you know, what we see on TV, what do you remember most about your Paralympic Games experience? Is there anything that now that you've been to 3, which is such an incredible achievement, is there anything that continues to stand out or that you continue to look forward to, kind of away from the pool in a way?
Yes, of course. The Paralympic Games is such an extraordinary experience, and every Paralympic Games were different because I was in a different stage in my life. In my first Paralympic Games, I was 16. I barely saw anything of the world, and then I went to China for 3 weeks and was competing there with the best of the best. It was 10 years after my accident, and I was like surprised and overwhelmed that I am here right now competing with the best of the best. And 10 years ago, I was just a little boy with just one arm, and everyone was wondering what kind of life will this boy have. And now I'm standing there and competing, and then seeing so many people cheering us on. And I especially remember when we walked in at this opening ceremony of the Paralympic Games in Beijing in 2008, and there were 80,000 people cheering us on, and they were shouting "Audi Li, Audi Li." And I remember that This means Austria in Chinese. And I
Ah.
felt like nobody of them knows me, and still they're really excited to see us compete. And I think that what the Paralympics stands for, to show what people with disabilities can achieve and are able to do in our society, and to see that translate in different contexts in different regions of the world, to see how China tried to communicate this message, and how the Great Britain tried to communicate this message, and how Rio de Janeiro did that, and winning a medal in Rio de Janeiro. It was so many amazing experiences that I'm just getting so excited just thinking about them, and it's something so special. And I really hope that I will be able to experience this experience so many more times, and not just the 4 times I hope it will be in the summer, but seeing the games and actually feeling them, being a part of it, is something that's so amazing.
You know, when I ask, and this question is coming up for you, so you won't get out of it, but whenever I ask my guests, you know, the question of what elements make an incredible experience, that idea of feeling is so important. And no matter what anyone's answer is, it is always such a commonality. And even when I'm working with different people, the first question I always ask is, how do you want your guests to feel once they've left? And I think sometimes we take that for granted, right? There's so many other thoughts that go through our head. I want to create a successful event. You know, I want them to share it. I want them to tell everyone. I want to do it again. But sometimes we don't think about that feeling element. And that is the perfect example of, I mean, I can't even imagine walking into a stadium, 80,000 people, and having people chanting for your country. And, you know, for those of us that are very attached, are very patriotic to a certain country, that feeling just must be, I mean, it must be very emotional, right? Like I can only imagine how emotional that could have been, that experience.
It is just amazing. It's really hard to describe. You have to live it yourself. And but I think the one experience that is the one thing that I would say was something in common for all my experience at the Paralympics, was just joy. It was just having joy in sports, and showing that people with disabilities, despite or thanks to their experiences in their life, and thanks to their hardship that they have experienced, to be able to just perform with joy and show people what sports can achieve in our lives. This is something that it just makes out the experience of the Paralympic Games. And it's something that I have felt in being on the inside in different variations over the games, because I have had wins and fails at the Paralympic Games, but just having this overarching feel of feeling the joy of competing, of seeing so many people overcoming hardship in life and just enjoying it and showing it, and having this really, really strong, inclusive sign that we are holding up at the Paralympic Games is just amazing, and you just have to relive it. So I hope in the future you will have the possibility to come and visit the Paralympic Games and live it for yourself.
Is there any, you know, I love talking about culture. Obviously, I'm a full-time traveler, so I'm always immersed in new cultures. And even from a professional workplace point of view, I love talking about culture building within a workplace. And so I'm interested, you know, obviously you have very strict, I'm sure, schedules, and you have to remain very focused, and you really, you know, you have a job to do, and it's, I'm sure, very stressful and nerve-wracking, and you get very anxious at the same time. But do you have are you able to experience other cultures from fellow athletes, you know, outside of your team, and maybe get to know people from a country that you've maybe never even heard of, let alone, you know, been to? Is there that element of connection with fellow athletes at the Paralympic Games?
Yeah, this is something that's especially relevable at the Paralympic Games, because you're in this Paralympic village with so many different people from so many different places. You eat together, you train together, you have the public spaces. I know that at the Tokyo Paralympics it will be different, but at the last ones it was very wanted to be together with all the people and meet them and learn about the cultures and everything they do. And so I had very interesting encounters with people from all over the world, from places that I didn't know existed, and this is the funny thing, that I didn't know existed in this way. So I had like preconceptions made up about places, about people, about cultures, and being there and like getting out of my bubble that I have created and my misconceptions about some parts of the world is just amazing. The one thing though that I'm missing out because of the stressful schedule and of being there to compete is to experience the culture of the country you're currently in. So this is something that I don't really get to enjoy as much as I would love to, because the one thing or the 2-3 things that I see is like the airport, the swimming pool, and the hotel. This is the one thing that I have to focus on during the competitions, and mostly after the competitions we have to travel back home. So I would really love to be able to experience the countries that we're currently in. But at the Paralympics, you have the experience in the stadiums that is just different. So the level of passion in Rio de Janeiro was completely different than the one in Great Britain. Not that it was bad in Great Britain, but just
different.
Such another kind of passion. Great Britain, more structured, more disciplined passion, and in Brazil it was just like crazy. And so it's different, and I can imagine that in Asia it will be different as well. So to experience that on top of the Paralympic experience is just something very interesting to see.
I can relate to that a lot because, you know, I have led teams all over the world, and sometimes one thing that was amazing with one of my teams, I would change countries and it would just completely fall flat, or they would be like, what, like, or even offended at sometimes, or I would not be able to connect in the same way. So it was an incredible experience to almost live the same experience but in different places, right? I think there's such magic in that, and like you said, you're able to learn things about the people around you, the culture that you're in, you know, whether it's a culture of the country, not necessarily for you getting out and about, but there's still, I'm assuming, are elements of the culture within the Paralympic village, let's say, you know, that help bring that cultural element to life. That is very interesting. Okay. Let's say I wanted to create some kind of sports event. You know, we all love competition. I think everyone can say there's always that real fun in competing and doing really active things. And I mean, I can think of, especially growing up at school, the amount of kind of Olympic events that were created for us, and you go around the different stations and it's a big competition. And I think we create sporting events for many different reasons, whether it's for students, whether it is a team building activity, you know, as adults, for example, in a workplace, maybe even for clients. And so if I wanted to create a sporting event for the people that I work with, the people I serve, what are my first steps is the first question. And then the other, the real, what I really want to know from you is, where do we go wrong when creating a sporting event? I think, you know, as we create events, you know, I've created events for many years. There's so many elements that we just don't think of until maybe after and go, damn, we should have done that. So can you give us a little bit of insight from a professional sportsman, a Paralympian, in terms of what elements really in a sports event make it amazing, and where can we even begin? That's the main question.
So I will try to answer your question out of the perspective of an athlete, because I have not yet organized big events like the Paralympic Games, but I have experienced them as an athlete. So I think that the one thing that I see when we have our events, it's important for everyone involved to see it as a happening, as something that is just more than just people swimming from A to B as fast as possible. So like make it an experience where they can see and experience the sport in itself, have events around the event so that the message that you are trying to communicate is communicated. So this is also something that I would say it's very important that we often forget about, because we're involved in the little details that we often forget about the big picture. What is it that we want people to feel when they get to experience this sport, when they get to see 8 people with disabilities jump into the water? It's not just that things have to be organized well in a very specific detail, but also that people should be excited about what they're seeing. They should be excited about experiencing the whole sport, maybe the stories of the people, to be prepared to showcase the experiences that those athletes have gone through, and by this just having an over reaching message that is ahead of just the plain sporting event itself. So making it being experienceable, making it a happening, something that people will remember with joy, and they would tell everybody, you have to see that, you have to buy a ticket and go to the Paralympic Games and be on the stands there and experience all those amazing people swimming. And it's more than just seeing fast swimming and good technique. It's just about the human experience, the people. So those are the things that I would love to see in every event that I visit or go to as an athlete or as a spectator. I know it's hard, but I know that it's possible. I've seen it in a few cases, and I think that this is something that can make an event like really, really great for everybody involved.
Yeah, that's such a great answer. And I feel like you're also bringing in that element of storytelling, right? How can we tell the story in a way that's going to translate to the entire experience? So we're not just telling the story of that one swimmer jumping into the pool. We are telling the story of why we're all here, why this Paralympics even exists. So that's such a great answer. I want to finish with, I mean, I feel like we've definitely covered a lot in terms of really how to create an incredible experience, especially when it comes to sport. However, if there's anything that we haven't touched on, I would like to invite you to answer the very last question, and that is, what elements make an incredible experience in your own world, in your own context, in your own expertise? Go for it.
I love the concept of creating touch points. So in disability inclusion, we always talk about that we don't just need to get away with barriers like buildings and everything, but we need to build off the barriers in the head of people. So we need to create touch points with people with disabilities, so that those preconceptions of how can people with disabilities be included in the world get changed. And sporting events are an amazing opportunity for that. And especially you have talked about storytelling. This is something that I had in my mind, because by not just telling the story of the athlete, if you see two people jumping to the water and the one is faster than the other, you have a winner and you have a loser. I say it with caution. But if you tell the story of this athlete who has maybe had some really difficult times, and now he's overcome everything that was put into his way, and now he's competing here, and now he's able to swim this record or win this medal, and the Paralympic Games have given him the opportunity to overcome his limits, to enable people with disabilities as a whole, and not just in a country, but also for our entire world, especially in regions where disability inclusion is not as far ahead as it should be. Right. So this is a very important driver, and this experience of the Paralympic Games helps with this amazing and important social cause. So creating those touch points, exciting people, maybe surprising people what myself as a person with just one arm is able to do, is something that starts to change perspective on disability, on people with disabilities. And so creating those touch points, being able to tell the stories as a whole, as a movement, is something that in our sports field makes a really, really amazing experience. And I'm so glad and happy that I can experience it for myself, because sports has changed my life. It has showed me what I am capable of. It has showed me what I'm not capable of, where I still need to train, to work hard, to be disciplined. But it has proved me that I can contribute. I'm part of this world, I'm part of this society, and being able to experience this myself has changed me, and I want everyone else to experience this as well. So having this driver as the Paralympics Games are, as sporting events are, creating those experiences is something that is so crucial and can have a real impact.
I mean, that is a brilliant answer to finish this conversation. Man, oh yes, I'm very pumped up just from listening to you answer that question. That was a brilliant answer. I would like to thank you so much, Andreas, for coming on the Experience Creators. And of course, best of luck for the Paralympic Games coming up shortly. Hopefully, we will see. All the best. And thank you for being an incredible experience creator yourself.
Thank you for having me, and all the best to you as well.